Okay, this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm here at the computer. I'm not going to be out at the garden for this. For this one to really make a lot of sense, you really need to go see this video that I've got up on the screen. I'll put a link down below in the show notes and stuff where you can just go to the Garden Jonesboro channel, which is where you probably are right now anyway, and scroll back and either search for or just scroll back and find this one. You'll notice it's about 51 minutes, 52 minutes. I don't have the say so, but I would hope that, considering we're talking and getting educated by a gentleman at Ward Labs, Soil Labs, that I would hope that this would qualify as 1 hour of education. But somebody can clarify that for me. If somebody wants to do that, they can ask. I've just rewatched it for this. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is I have repeated the soil test. The video you're seeing, this discussion, was a gentleman from the Ward Labs going over the soil health assessment analysis that I did back in February on the Riceland Garden on 2 different plots. And now that it's June, which may not be the best time of the year, but it's a different time of the year, I have repeated it so that we can see some differences. And here in a second, I'll start going over some of those results and, as I understand it, what they mean. But I don't consider myself a true expert on it. That's why we did this call with him. And so what I would really strongly suggest is that you pause this video, go over and watch this discussion with Terry, and because he gives a lot of the background, the methods, what it means, things of that nature. So watch that to get a grounding. Then come back to this video and we'll see the results from this June soil test as well. So yeah, just go ahead and hit pause, do whatever you want to, go watch this other one, and then come back to this video. Okay, assuming that you've watched the other one, I have pulled up here, this is the February results, and I haven't taken every single value, but this is the February and this is the June results. And I have put them in a spreadsheet so that we have the most, not all, but most of the results here. We've got the 2 different tests and the results, and we can see that they're different. Now, a lot of the difference is not necessarily going to be because of anything that we have done this year. Because if anything, the majority of what I've done is more soil disturbance, which is what I'm trying to get away from. So if anything, the results would be very similar or possibly even worse, because I not only, in doing those raised beds, about 50% of that area was actually disturbed. I basically just took topsoil from about half of the area and put it on top of the existing topsoil, which created the raised beds. So now those are twice the thickness of the topsoil, and where our walkways are down closer to the subsoil. But all the soil samples, all the cores that I took for this June one sample, and there are probably about 10 different cores around that existing garden, down to about 6 or 8 inches, were in the bed. So it's double thickness topsoil there. Probably the primary difference, if there's any difference at all, which there are in some of them, whether they're statistically significant or not, it's another story, is simply because the one in February, it was cool and it had been raining a lot. It had been wet. I mentioned in the video that I took one and it was very cool, very wet, and I just discarded that. And after it dried up a little bit, I took another set of samples and immediately sent it off to Ward Labs. here in June, I mean, when I took this one, probably on the 22nd of June, it hadn't really got really hot yet, but it was starting to get much hotter. So the soil had warmed up. We've had, 2 or 3 months of above 50-degree soil temps, and the biology that exists, what biology is there, is waking up and becoming active. And so just between the temperature, the amount of rain, things like that, the activity in the microbiology in the soil is going to be a little bit different. And that probably is as much of a difference as anything. Just in case you didn't watch that full video, and I really hope you do. I seriously really hope you do. Towards the end of it, we got into a little bit of a discussion, and as a reminder, this is not your, quote, conventional type of gardening. I'm trying to go to a more regenerative type soil health, soil life, microbiological life based system. And one of the huge differences, besides the techniques, is that it's a slow process. This is not a get a soil test, get recommendations, go buy some bags of this and that, throw it out there, and get instant results. These are the things that the real results of reducing the tillage and using mulches and cover cropping and things of this. This can easily be a 3 to 5 year process before you really start seeing the results. We may be able to do a little bit better, may be able to bump that up a little bit, but that's why I've been telling people this year, I'm not concerned as much about production. I'm trying to learn that soil, learn that land, what it will and won't grow, really paying attention to it, and start the process. Just start the process of healing that soil. Being a nurse, I look at it like the soil is a patient. It's easy for a person to become injured or sick. That can happen very quickly. Healing takes longer, whether it's a wound or an illness. It's a longer process, and then you need to maintain it. So, with that being said, let's start going through this just a little bit. First things, pH. In February, 7.1. Here in June, 7.7. That's alkaline. Not horrible. It's not over 8. But it is a little bit on the alkaline side. And that may be being exhibited by some of the issues that we're having. I've got need some more reading and research to do, but that nutsedge, that literally could be part of, not all, but a little bit of the nutsedge issue. It's just a pioneer plant that can handle a higher pH. Looking at what we should be able to grow there, asparagus likes higher pH. And for some reason, I had heard or learned or thought I had heard and learned that strawberries and asparagus work well together. But on the other, if you're looking strictly at pH, asparagus likes a high pH, strawberries like a low pH, more acidic soil. And as the pH goes up, it gets more alkaline, or if it gets very acidic, of course, that can affect the other nutrients and micronutrients availability. They may be there, but they may not be available because of the pH. So I don't know that we're like in a dangerous realm here, but it is a little on the alkaline side. We need to keep that in mind when we're deciding what to plant. And I did go ahead and pick up a bag of sulfur. I may start doing some light dustings of sulfur on the rows, not over the whole thing. There's no reason to add it to the walkways. But on some of the actual growing beds, especially if we're going to want to put something there that prefers a more neutral or acidic type soil, I may have a little bit of sulfur to add just to nudge it a little bit. I don't want to throw a bunch out there and crash everything or do anything too drastic, but especially in the middle of the growing season. Now in the video, if you watched it, he said, looking at soil respiration. Because the soil health assessment test that I did is as much a biological test, as it is a chemical test, as opposed to if I'd sent it through the extension service, we're really concerned with the microbiology and the life in the soil. Well, the life in the soil, bacteria and stuff, they respire. They're alive. They respire just like we do. And he explains what this test is and how they get it. But you start here at line number 4, soil respiration. February is about 30. June is about 35. And he said they look for it to be 100 or higher, preferably around 150. So just based on that, having no prior knowledge of the land from which the soil was taken, he said, has it been tilled a lot? Then he goes, this tells me that it's probably been beat up and tilled a whole lot, which it has. So that's kind of where that indication is. That's one number we're going to be paying attention to over time, over 2, 3, 4 years, or however long we keep doing this garden this way. So that's the first thing he looks at. The second thing he looks at is line 8 here, total organic carbon. Now, how that relates to the respiration is that the microbes and the biology in the soil, they eat. So if the respiration is a measurement of them breathing, the more there are and the more active they are, the more they breathe, therefore the higher this number is going to be. But they don't breathe very long if they don't have anything to eat, and they tend to eat carbon. It may be in the form of sugars and carbohydrates and other things like that, exudates from the plants, which is why we need a living root. But they look at this as compared to the respiration to make sure there's enough food for the biology that's there now. Because if there's enough food, root exudates, for the existing life, then it will eat that and not start eating the carbon from the soil, thus reducing the organic material. If there is more food than the current biology needs, then the population will increase. I mean, remember this from, public school and possibly college and university biology classes. When the availability of food goes up, the population tends to go up. When it goes down, the population eventually starts going down through starvation, famine, and disease. So is there enough food for the biology which is there now? And he said that looks good based on their experience and doing these. He would like to have it a little bit higher, but right now it's not bad. Now, one of the next things he looks at is the actual organic, and we're at 3.1 in February, 3.4, and that's not bad. It's not bad. It's decent. It can definitely go up, and he goes over a lot of what does that mean, and what does more organic material mean as far as water holding capacity and other nutrients. You can watch that video, or you can look it up as well. But if we could get that up higher, it just really helps not have to irrigate, buffers pH, it holds more other nutrients there. There's just so many benefits of having higher organic material. So we're going to be watching that and trying to get that up a little bit higher as well over time. Part of the mulch and stuff in there. And like the organic nitrogen is not plant available. The way that becomes plant available is the biology in the soil will eat the nitrogen in the form that it's in, the organic one, and then when it dies, either that bacteria dies or is eaten by something else, then the nitrogen is released, and it is released in a form which is plant available. So just the fact that there is one or both kinds of nitrogen there, ammonia and nitrate, and always get them confused, doesn't necessarily mean that it's plant available. We need the microbiology there to cycle that and put it in a plant available form. So this microbially active carbon, we went from 30 to 41, almost 42, probably a factor of temperature and stuff. That's the carbon to the respiration ones. He divides the soil respiration by the total organic carbon, and that gives the microbially active carbon. Is how that they get to that. They would prefer that to be about 100 or more on that one. The organic carbon to organic nitrogen ratio. So you've got the colon there. So this is a ratio. We're at 10.6 in February, 11.7 in June. He said that is kind of in the sweet spot. They want that to be about an 8 to 15. So this number being an 8 to 1 or up to 15 to 1. So we're in a pretty good area here. So we've got the carbon to nitrogen ratio. We just don't have a whole lot of actual life there because we've been beating the soil up for so many years. We get down into these nutrients, and so if you've done other soil tests, you're used to seeing the phosphorus, potassium, zinc, iron, manganese, all these in there, and a number. One thing that you may notice here, you start seeing these. Well, what are these extra things here? Well, this is the testing protocol or testing procedure. This stands for MELIC 3, which is a strong acid, and that is, if you send it in through the extension service to the University of Arkansas, that's what they're going to use. So this is a almost neutral pH acid. This is an almost neutral pH acid or agent for evaluating that. He speaks a little bit more of that in that video. So again, go back and watch the video, but this at least tells you which methodology, because if I sent the sample both to Ward Lab and through the extension service, we would expect the phosphorus to be essentially the same because they use the same testing method. Now, if they're using that MELIC 3 for potassium, then we're going to get different numbers. But it just tells you what they use to get that number here. Phosphorus, we're okay. Main thing, he says they don't want over 200 for the phosphorus, but we're okay here. There should be enough there. The zinc is a little bit high, but nothing concerning, he said. Nothing too concerning there. Iron and manganese are okay. Copper was high. It's actually very high, but not problematic, was what he said. So we shouldn't have a problem with copper as long as we don't do anything in pH or otherwise that would cause that to be the uptake to be too excessive. And there are a few things that could do that. Everything else looks pretty good. The sodium is nice and low. You don't want that high, so we don't have a problem with salty soil, sodium-laden soil. The soil health calculation is something that they do, and it's something to keep an eye on, and that's part of why I'm going to be doing this, probably repeating this once or twice a year, at least every June, just to keep it consistent. I may do it in February as well, just so we get kind of a running total. And he discusses how they get that and what it means. It's a little on the low side there, but nothing too concerning. This is just our baselines. This is where we're starting. And then as we do things, as we add mulches, as we cover crop, as we don't disturb the soil any more than we have to and reduce the amount of soil disturbance, then this can give us an indication of is what we're doing being effective. So it's not a number that tells us something in and of itself. It's a number that indicates whether our practices are successfully moving us to where we want to be. Cover crop suggestion for both tests were 50-50 legume and grass, and grass is being, veggies, maybe being oats, anything in the grain kind of thing. He talks a little bit about the water stable aggregates, and the higher the number, the better. So we're moving upwards here, but that's probably more because of the time of year and the warmth and the amount of biological activity that's naturally coming up, not because of any practice that we've done, because the only thing we've done is actually more soil disturbance this time. Sum of cations is basically your cation exchange. And he looked at that 10 and he said, yeah, that's another indicator this soil's probably been beat up quite a bit. That there's not a lot of aggregates there. So you can kind of print this off if you want to do some screenshots, and then go back and watch that video and kind of see what makes a difference on there, or email me and I'll send you this spreadsheet, and I'll even send you the actual lab results from both of them. There's no secret to it there. On the first one, there were no recommendations. On the second one, this June one, they did give some recommendations, actual pounds of plant nutrients per acre. And I've never seen a soil test that didn't suggest putting nitrogen down. It's so ephemeral. I could take a soil test today and take another one tomorrow, send it to the same lab, and they're going to have completely different results. You could do 2 soil tests, one in the morning, one in the evening, and those 2 would be significantly different. So they always say add nitrogen. Well, we are adding nitrogen. We're just doing that by planting beans and peas and other legumes. Now, the potassium, I saw this because everything else was no recommendation. And I did pick up just a smidge of potassium, murate of potassium, that I might put out, just very, very light dusting. But in the discussion from the first up here, he saw because he didn't have the June one. The discussion and the video was from the February. Even with the 117, he said that's not a problem. There should be enough there. There's something very that specifically needs the potassium. And yet down here there's a suggestion of 25 pounds per acre. So I've got like a couple of pounds that I may put out. I'm really thinking about the potassium and the pH. I'm thinking about maybe one of the rows that's got quite a bit of the nutsedge there. I'm thinking about putting a little bit of the sulfur and a little bit of the potassium on part of it and see if there's a difference in the growth of the nutsedge. Does it make it grow more, or does it inhibit it a little bit? Because if nutsedge happens to be a reparative one that likes alkaline soil, meaning it's trying to take it more acidic, and if it is a potassium accumulator, indicating a lack of potassium, then by putting those 2 things there, I'm changing the conditions, and that the nutsedge may not be as competitive as it is in the current conditions. So modifying, using the weeds as an indication of the problem, and then modifying the growing conditions based on that, so that what we want can outcompete the so-called weeds, as opposed to just blunt force ripping them out or poisoning them. So I don't know if this part makes a whole lot of sense. I'm sure the other video makes a lot more sense, but I did want to at least let everyone know that's curious, whether you're involved with the Riceland Garden or just gardening in general. We're doing ongoing laboratory soil analysis, trying to learn from that and modifying our actions in a biological way to improve the soil and the health of the soil, so that our garden will be more productive in the future. Not so much more productive in pounds, because we're not measuring that. That's one of the other things I'd like to move towards, is finding some way. If we think that how much we're producing and who's getting it and where it's going, if we truly think that's important, we need to implement some ways of quantifying that, and however that may happen. But just letting you know what the results are, what the plan is, and that we are trying to proceed in a in a way that that does have research basis behind it. It's not a bunch of new age woo woo stuff. I'm not going to be putting crystals out there trying to bring in the cosmic powers or whatever. Even though it may be different than what most of us grew up doing, there is scientific rationale behind it and quantification to measure the progress. If you've got any more questions, let me know. I am constantly reading and watching videos and taking courses, trying to learn more about this. This is kind of one of my passions right now. So just let me know what your thoughts are, and if you like this or more stuff and things like that. Thanks.